right, welcome back. So let's start writing some real code for this guy. So right now the only change we've made is we've changed the word Ionic blank to the word home here. And we want to start doing some more things. The first skill that I kind of want to teach, just because it'll be fun, is just to push on another page. So with Angular, you've got the Angular router, and the Angular router is kind of a complex, intricate system where it uses kind of like URL parameters in interesting ways. Ionic is much simpler, right? So it is basically a navigation stack if you're familiar with iOS development, and you're just pushing pages on top. So there's always one page you can see on top. It doesn't really use the URL at all. In fact, like it's kind of meant to be a native app, so you wouldn't even see the URL. So it's not really meant for like doing all the same things that Angular router does. So let's just go ahead and try to do some things with it. So what we want to do is we're going to play around in the home page here. Eventually we're going to delete the home page, so it's just kind of a good place to play around. And we're just going to add a simple button. Just because I like to do things like this, we'll make it an Ion button that looks a little prettier, and we'll do an outline, which is a button that I like. And what we're going to do with this button is we're just going to use it as a little sandbox test. We're just going to have it call a function. I don't even care what you call this function. We'll just call it push new page example, right? So anything called example, is not gonna survive. And so we'll just say go to the details page. Cool, and then we'll finish the button up there. Of course, if you want to make your button flow into multiple lines, you can do things like that. I'm always funny about buttons because the auto formatter and Visual Code Studio, as you can see there, doesn't really treat buttons right. So sometimes I try to leave all my buttons on one line just for their sake. So here where it says push new page, I'm going to copy that and I'm going to go over into the TypeScript and I'm just going to make a function over here that's void, and I'm just going to say console log to do push a page. So now I'm going to save that up and I'm going to go give it a whirl. So it looks like my page has refreshed properly over here. I'm going to open the console up so I can see things. As soon as I click on this, it just says to do push a page. Great, that part was pretty easy. Let's go ahead and push a page, which is also pretty easy. The only thing that makes pushing a page harder is we need to have a page to push to. So we're going to go open up the CLI again. And we're going to open up a new tab so that way I can kind of keep on serving. Making sure my new tab is in the right place. I'm just in the project folder. One nice thing about Ionic is you don't have to like go into the services folder or anything like that. You just type all your commands from the top level. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a new page. Much like Angular was ngg component, this one is ngg, and what we're going to make is actually called a page. So you can see that Ionic distinguishes between pages, which are kind of like routes, right, versus just regular components that are in there. So you actually say the word page or the word component. So we're going to make a page here. The page that we're going to make is we're going to make the quote detail page. So the quote detail page is the one that, like when you click on a row, you'll see a zoom in of that quote, and so that's what the quote detail page is. So it says it generated a page called quote detail page. If you come in here, you can see that in pages we've got home, and then we've also got this quote detail. If we expand it up, you can see that they made a couple files for us. They made an HTML, a sassy CSS, which I like that they did that, a TypeScript, and then they also made this quote detail module. Now, why did they do this module to us? Well, what they're trying to do is they're trying to make the initial app load fast, and so they're encouraging you to make different pages as different modules, and that way you only include in your main module the thing that you need. Our app is small enough that all their work here is going to be in vain, though, because we're just going to add this module into the app module. In fact, every time we make a page, we're just going to add it into the app module, which makes their work of making it into modules kind of unnecessary, but that's okay. So over in the app module, so we have imports, and what we need here is we need a quote detail page module. And it's of course going to make you auto import that. And then because I like to do it, I like to put trailing comments on things. By the way, just to mention it here, you can see that for the home page, they did it different. So there was no home page module. So there's no home page module. It was just added as a declaration and an entry component, which is what you need to do for things that kind of appear. So you can see that it was done one way, and then this was done a different way with a module, but both ways work. So now what we want to do is we want to actually push that page over. In order to push a page, you need the nav controller, which they gave you by default in their template, which was nice of them. So we want to say, hey, nav controller, push, and then you've got to say what it is that you're going to push. So you can push a string, so it can be the string title of a page, or it can actually be the page object itself. For this one, it doesn't really matter. I'm going to go ahead and use the page object itself. So I'm going to say quote detail page. There's pros and cons of that. The con of the way I did it is that you can see we had to import it up here, which means that there's a dependency that's set on there. But I personally don't mind that for this app. But for a bigger app, you might want to use the string approach because that way it'll keep your dependencies independent, right? So it'll couple you less. But for this one, it just doesn't matter. Now the quote detail page, once it pops up, we're just going to have it say something. We're just going to have it say, this is the quote detail page. Pretty fancy. And of course it'll say quote detail page at the top. I'm going to have it just say the word quote at the top. Alright, so now whenever I click this button, you can see that it actually pushed on the quote page. And it says this is the quote detail page. And we've got a back button because this is kind of an iOS look. You can also see that in iOS, a push kind of pushes over from the right, so it kind of slides over like that, and that's how iOS looks. If you switch it over to Android, and like I say, I usually have to hit refresh just to kind of like get things to really be new. When you click on this, you can see it kind of does it different. It kind of appears from about halfway up, right? So it kind of just appears, and it's a lot faster of an animation, but it kind of pops up from like the middle. So again, they've tried to do things to where the native look and feel is preserved when you're using Ionic, which is cool. All right, so that's pushing a page. It's actually very, very simple. You just say navigation controller push, and then you say what page you want to push on there. There is also a thing where you can add a parameter, and so you can add on params, and it can be anything you want. So it's just an object of params. And that's something that we'll do later. For now, though, what we want to do is we actually want to make another page. So this home page was really just for testing. The quote detail page is actually a good page. But instead of a home page, what we're going to do is we're going to make a quote list page. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to blow away home, and we're going to have our page named what we want it to be named. So instead of named home, it's going to be called like quote list page. So I'm going to say Ionic G page. And you can call it whatever you want. You can call it quotes page or whatever you want. I'm going to call mine the list page. Another difference you'll notice between the Ionic CLI and the Angular CLI is you have to still say the word page if this thing is a page in Ionic. Whereas with Angular, if you called it list page, it would be called list page, right? Because the Angular CLI adds it automatically. And again, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to come over here and we're going to add the list page module. If you wanted to go see that name, you could totally open the file and it would be called just like you would expect, the list page module. So here's the list page module, and then there's the name right there, list page module. Now what we want to do is we want to actually load that instead of home. And so the place where you make that decision is in your, there it is, app component TS. So you can see instead of the home page, I want to start things off with the list page component. Or sorry, just list page is what I meant to say. Cool, so save everything and see if it starts with the list page. Now the HTML on the list page, it just says list page. I suppose we could do a little better than that. So here I'm going to call it movie quotes at the top. And we'll just say this will be a list of quotes. Cool, so save that up. And so now you can see that it's doing the right thing. The next thing I want to do, kind of the final thing for this video, is I want to purge the home page out. Whenever I do refactors like that, sometimes I check it in. So this is created a placeholder for the 2 pages of this app. So I kind of wanted to check that in separate, and now I'll go through and I'll delete the home page. I just kind of like to do that because then I've got a safe point in case I screw something up, right? So I'm going to delete the folder that's called home. I'm going to go into the app module, and I'm going to delete the import of the word home. And then I'm going to delete the 2 references to the home page. And then over in the app component TS, I've still got an import over here as well that I need to get rid of. And so there I just completely got rid of the thing that they made for us, which was that home component, just got rid of it. I also kind of like iPhone better for some reason, so I'll go back to iPhone. Cool, so let's go ahead and check in that removal. So we took it out of the import from here, the import and 2 references in there, and then we deleted a file. So this is remove the old home page. The only thing we kind of lost in that is that we had this example in here of how to push on a page, but really it was just navcontroller.push, so not much really lost there. All right, so we've got our placeholder routes ready, and so we've got a list page that's kind of staring us in the face here, and we'll come back next time and we'll start learning more about integrating with Firebase and making a table show up here. See you then. Bye.